Best of r/Tales from Retail episode 53. This is a story from back when I was working for a well-known electronics retailer that has a thing for blue t-shirts and khakis, that has an equally well-known tech services division that is known for white-collar shirts with black ties. We have a customer come in and put a laptop on the returns counter and declare he wants to return it. Since it was a computer, there's a chance that the customer may have done something that would render us unable to return it. Something like installing a secured operating system on it, leaving their account logged in with secure account turned on, having a biometric password, etc. Stuff like that. So I got waved over to check it out and make sure these situations were not present. While I was checking for that, the customer service rep asked for the receipt, and when the customer couldn't produce it, went to look it up. We soon find that there are two separate reasons the computer is not eligible for return. Firstly, it had been purchased 6 months ago, well outside the return period. Secondly, it was so overtaxed with malware/spyware/adware that the entire operating system was disabled. I couldn't even safe boot into it. The customer service rep explained that it was outside of return period. I explained that it was not defective but had become bogged down with adware and would need to be restored to return to functional. I offered to get the information for the customer to contact the manufacturer and order the discs. The customer said the recovery discs were not an option and that he demanded to return it. The customer service explained that was not an option. Customer demanded to speak with the manager. We page him over. Customer starts with a story about how rude we had been to him and says he wants to return the defective laptop. The manager gets the rundown about the condition of the laptop and the time since purchase. He explains that the laptop is not eligible for return and there is no indication that the problem is a defect in the laptop itself. He offers to waive the diagnostic fee to check the laptop into the service department to confirm the problem. He stresses that the customer would still have to pay for repairs. The customer asks how much that would be. I explain if it's just an operating system restore, it would be $70, but the customer would still need to contact the manufacturer and obtain a copy of the restore discs. The customer says that's not an option and once more demands to return the laptop. The manager again explains that the laptop is not eligible for return. The customer takes the laptop and starts to walk to the door before turning back to us and in a full body heave, smashes the laptop onto the ground with all his strength. The cheap laptop practically exploded into a bloom of fragments, debris, and components as the customer storms out of the store. All the manager, customer service rep and I could do was stand there and wonder who was going to clean that up. We opted on round of rock paper scissors to determine that. I lost. Thank you. Next. TLDR at the bottom. I had been working in my stores, an office supply store, backroom all shift, only coming out to help when the line at the registers got long. On one of those trips, I finished ringing up the last customer in line, but the main cashier was still on his customer and asked me for some help. A lady was trying to return 2 binders, a blue one and a purple one, but she had removed the barcode, and I'm guessing she didn't have a receipt, so the cashier had nothing to input into the register. When that happens, it's usually not a big deal. Someone just has to find the identical product on the shelf, and the price tag has the product's item number, which can be typed into the register. Easy. I made my way to the binder aisle knowing specifically that I needed to find a blue, 1.5-inch binder without pockets on the outside cover, and a purple one of the same specifications. On my way to the aisle, I noticed an older man standing a little bit outside the binder aisle staring at me while I walk. I looked up from my mobile device that I had been using to see if I can pull up one of the binders there before getting to the aisle, smiled, made eye contact, and nodded at him, expecting him to ask me something. He didn't say anything, so I continued on my way. Now in the binder aisle, I found the stack of blue binders rather quickly, but I had trouble finding the purple stack. I radioed the cashier that update as by now it had been a good minute and the cashier could give the lady that update in case she was getting impatient. As I told him this, the guy approached me in the aisle and it seemed like he wanted to tell me something. I glanced over at him, but continued looking over the shelf, trying to make it obvious that I'm helping someone else and will not stop what I'm doing just for him. Since he heard what I said over the radio, that I was still looking for the purple binder item number, the guy proceeded to point at all the purple binders in the aisle. Look, "This one's purple," he said, to which I nicely replied, "That's not the one I'm looking for. What about that one?" as he pointed to another purple one, to which I replied a tad bit less nicely, "Nope, that one's not it either. Here's another purple one." Annoyed, I replied sternly, "That's not it, sir." After I said that, he left the aisle, and not too long after that, I finally found the purple binder stack. As I walk out of the aisle and make my way back up to the register, I noticed the guy standing in the main aisle again waiting for me, but I passed him and continued to the register to give the cashier the item numbers to complete the return. At that point the cashier was on another register finishing up with another customer, so I wrote down the item numbers and told him that I needed to help out a customer on the floor. Right as I finished my sentence, I looked up only to see the guy now in front of me walking out the store in a huff. I didn't feel one bit bad about it. While I'll concede that I could have said something like "I'll be right with you," whether or not he would have been okay with that is another debate. I was very obviously helping someone else, and he was nobody to expect me to stop just for him. TLDR, old guy doesn't seem to care that I'm helping someone else, doesn't ask me for help but still expects me to stop what I'm doing to help him, inserts himself in the situation by trying, and failing, to help me so that I can get to him faster. Doesn't realize that I'm not finished helping when he thinks I am, and leaves the store in a huff, presumably because no one helped me. Thank you. Next. This happened to a co-worker whilst I worked for a mobile store. I was working with another customer at a table a few feet away. Policy states that before any accounts can be accessed we must get a NID from account holder, or TIN for businesses. This is to protect against fraud, especially now that people can lease to own phones, iPads, watches, etc. on the account. A man came in who had a business account but could not give the tax ID. Co-worker explained why he could not access the account unless he had the TIN. Customer kept arguing it was an old business, he didn't know it, he needed a new phone, it was of course his account. Why would I purchase a phone on someone else's account? Faced with rolling eyes, around and around they went. Co-worker walked out from behind the counter he was leaning on and apologized again and explained per policy he couldn't help. If he did he could be fired. It was to protect customers from others purchasing on their account. The customer grabbed my co-worker by the front of his shirt and threw him against a wall screaming, "It's my account." Another co-worker, whose first day it was on the floor, grabbed the guy and pried him off but didn't know what to do next. He dropped the guy. Two managers came out. The whole store, tiny store, was silent and watching. I was keeping customers and kids away from the area and the door. The assault customer ran out the door but we had his plates. He actually didn't leave, stayed outside sitting on the curb until the police arrived. My co-worker didn't press charges because I don't want to ruin his life. Honestly, I would have been crying. This store had some doozies. I had a lady leave in a huff and when she got to the door she screamed, "I am a woman of Jesus. Trust in the Lord." Then left. Had a guy pull an 18 blade out of his jacket. Yeah, an interesting store. Thank you. Next. So this happened at one of the peak busy times of the year, a couple days after Christmas. Generally you would think a retail establishment is dead during January, and you'd be right when it comes to purchases. However, we are flooded with folks coming to make returns and exchanges from Christmas. Personally, I don't mind working Christmas Eve. Thankfully our store is closed on Christmas, but the weeks after Christmas are the hardest. They're hard because people who have been gifted range from people who have never been in our store and do not know the return policies, or are perplexed they can't exchange an item that was bought for them months ago and we no longer have it, or just straight up come in wanting full cash refunds on gifts they didn't purchase. So there's a lot of misunderstanding and bruised feelings when customers that aren't so understanding decide to make a scene knowing they'll ultimately get what they want if they can stand the public embarrassment of acting like a toddler in front of people. Now this is a story about someone who wasn't really acting like a toddler per se, but it is probably one of the most outrageous requests I've ever gotten working in retail. Knowing how busy the store is during this time, just imagine a well-stocked line of customers waiting to be helped with their return or exchange, and factor in the time it takes us to solve each case so the customer is happy and leaves with an item or gift card of their choice. While all this is going on full force, an older couple stops by. Since the woman doesn't really interact at all in this story, we'll say the older gentleman is named Trusty. Trusty wastes no time in showing me a black belt that looks pretty worn, and points out that the top end is split. He says he's bought belts from us plenty of times and that this one was the only one that ever gave him trouble. He says he wants a new belt. Simple enough. I do exchanges on recently damaged items plenty, so I ask Trusty if he has the receipt or the card he bought the item with, since I can look it up either way. He says he does not, which also isn't a huge deal when it comes to exchanges, as long as I can identify the item came from our store by scanning its barcode or finding the exact same one on the shelf, then I can swap them. Here's the problem. This belt, in addition to looking like Trusty's worn it for a good number of years, has no barcode. It doesn't even have that little plastic tag that tells you the information on the item, since it seems Trusty has snipped that off. We don't have a ton of belts, but I can tell by looking at it that we don't carry the brand that's emblazoned on the back. I decide to humor Trusty for a moment and say that if we can find the same belt, we can exchange it for him, even though it's blatantly obvious that Trusty just wants a new belt after wearing his out from who knows what store. I walk back to the belt with him and we browse through. It's just as I suspected. We don't have the belt. At this point the line's getting even longer and I'm getting annoyed, but I'll let Trusty know that I can do nothing for him, since technically I can't do anything with what he's given me information wise aside from gift him a new belt, of course. I tell him he'll have to speak with the manager since there's nothing more I can do, and he agrees to wait while I call the M.O.D. and play catch up with the line. When M.O.D. arrives, I explain the situation briefly before continuing to help customers. Trusty goes on to tell M.O.D. that he is a loyal, insert store name here, customer and spent $400 here this Christmas, like we owe him that belt. It's really annoying to listen to him grumping about how we need to give him a new belt since he knows he got the one that broke here and belt should last a longer time than what he got. On top of that, everyone in the line is privy to this show. M.O.D. is usually a very no-nonsense snippy manager, but after bringing her over a few times to get chewed out by customers, she seems to have changed her approach. She agrees to swap the belt out for whichever one Trusty wants. After she's done this, a customer in my line who's finished up strolls over to her and casually remarks, "You know, I have a belt that's a couple of years old too. Can I bring it in for a new one too?" M.O.D. laughs and says absolutely not. Meanwhile I'm sitting in my line mortified because I told Trusty there's just no way for him to get a refund or exchange an item he can't prove came from our store, and manager rolls over for him so he can smugly watch me the whole time she exchanges the belts. This is why I hate working after Christmas. Compared to this, Christmas is fun because everyone is out shopping for loved ones and in good moods. After Christmas, everyone is out for themselves and using the fact that we're rushed and ragged to pull these kinds of stunts. Thank you. Next. Tale number 5 from the video game store. Sorry it's been a while. I'm still a huge procrastinator. It's a Karen story. Everybody loves a good Karen story. This particular Karen was a regular pain in the neck. I've got a few stories with her. Something to know about her. She usually starts the interaction by shoving her phone, with an image of what she wants, into the face of whichever unlucky associate is available to help her, instead of, speaking to them like an actual human being. So a new game had just come out, Days Gone for the PS4. It was fairly popular, and the demand was a bit more than our supply. This story happened the day after launch day, when copies are running out. Another thing to know is, as employees, we are allowed to check out pretty much any game in the store, subject to manager approval, for up to 4 days. Generally, managers only decline the request if it's a AAA title just released or if we are low on copies. The manager in this case was pretty lax and let a co-worker check Days Gone out on launch day. He only took the disc, so the display case was still on the shelf. One last tidbit. All the game cases on the sales floor are empty. We take one copy of each game we have, take it out of the case, and put it in a drawer with a disc sleeve, while the empty case goes out on the sales floor to show people we have it in stock. Karen knew this as well. Some savvy people can figure it out, which will become relevant. We have 2 copies of the game left, not counting the one checked out, and there are 3 people in line. a regular who will call Paul, a normal customer, and then Karen. Paul comes up and says he wants to get Days Gone. I go to get it for him, but before I ring it up, he stops me. Wait, actually, let me check to make sure I've got enough for it, he said, and stepped to the side to check his bank account on his phone. You can go ahead with them for now, he said as he motioned to the line. Now, he wasn't indicating everybody currently in the line, just the line as a general concept. A concept that Karen would prove that she didn't understand. So I take the next guy, and, big surprise, he wants Days Gone. I get it for him, and as I'm ringing it up, I casually say to Paul, "Hey, just so you know, we only have one copy left." He replies, "Okay, yeah, I'm good to get it, thanks," and stays off to the side, as Karen has moved up and he didn't want to get in her personal space. I finish with the normal customer and get ready to motion Paul over when suddenly, a phone in my face. Karen with her stupid phone takes me by surprise. I didn't even see what was on the screen. It was so jarring. I say, "I'm sorry, Mom, he was actually next," pointing to Paul. She barks, "No, he wasn't. I was. He said I could go." I reply, "Well, he was at the front of the line, and just stepped out to check something, but he was still here first." Paul didn't want any trouble, so he says, "It's fine. She can go ahead." She perks up and says, "See? I told you I was next. Whatever, you imbecile." I say, "Alrighty, then, what can I get for you?" The phone in my face again. God, I hate this woman. It doesn't take me long to decipher the grainy photograph as Days Gone, and now I'm worried about what might transpire, and I'm not really sure what to say. I reason that Paul was indeed first, so he should have the right of first refusal. Days Gone, we actually only have one copy left, and I think Paul was going to buy it. I say, including Paul in the conversation. At this point, it appears that Paul doesn't want to give Karen any more niceties, so he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. I did actually want that game, and I was here first. Sorry, but you said I could go first, and I want that game for my son. You can't take back what you said now," she says, thinking she's found a loophole in his words or something. I say, "I'm sorry, Mom, but he was actually here first and I don't think there's anything else I can do, aside from checking a nearby store for you. I pretty much always suggest this when a game runs out, but apparently that wasn't good enough for her." She does step aside, though, and says, "Well, then, I'm going to call my son and you're going to have to tell him that you sold his copy to someone else." I had zero intention of doing that, not only because she was a jerk, but I never handle other people's phones for hygienic reasons. She doesn't pry me for a response, so I ignore her and help Paul. "Sorry about that," I say as I ring him up. "It's cool, I know stuff like that must happen every now and then," he says. "Buddy, you have no idea." I get him rung up and he leaves, and Karen is still on the phone. She's casually looking at the shelves and her eyes zero in on the display case for Days Gone. "Fork me. Hey, what's this?" she says and hangs up the phone, and rushes over to the display the case and picks it up. "That's just the display case for the game, but we don't have any more," I respond. "Yes, you do. When you have one of these out, the real case, it means you have one left." "I want it," she demands. I normally never mention the checkout process to customers, as most employees don't, since it just causes problems. But I would also not lie to a customer about it, rather I would deflect it. "I'm sorry, Mom, but as I said, we're sold out. I'm more than happy to check a nearby store for you." "No. If you have this case out here and you don't have any in stock, that means that one of the employees checked it out, right?" "I'm sorry, Mom, but we don't have any copies available." "You didn't answer my question." "I'm afraid I can't answer that question for you, but we don't have any copies available." "Well, I'm going to assume I'm right, then." "Good job, genius. I demand to know which employee has it." Now, I've had incidents with her before, but she'd never demanded something so insane as this. "Mom, I'm truly sorry, but we don't have a game. We just don't have it. I know one of you has it. It's you, isn't it? You're the one that checked it out, probably. You have to go home right now and bring it back." I'll even be nice enough to wait for you. I honestly didn't even know how to respond at this point. Luckily my manager had just come back from break. She rolled her eyes when she saw Karen because she always causes a ruckus. Your employee here is refusing to sell me the game he has checked out. That's terrible customer service. Karen barks Lena, my manager. Lena steels herself and says, give me a moment to clock in, and I'll be right with you. She goes in the back to put away her purse, comes back and clocks in. She turns to me and asks me to bring her up to speed. Karen tries to butt in a couple of times but Lena just casually tells her to wait until I'm done. After I finish, Lena says, well, I'm sorry, Mom, but it looks like we're sold out. Almost happy that she had let the game be checked out, since it ticked Karen off. I can check to see if another store nearby has this for you. Karen was livid. No, that's horrible customer service. I know he, points to me, has it at home. Make him go and get it. Lena says, Mom, please keep your voice down or I will ask you to leave the store. Karen calms down a bit and says, but you can't treat people this way. It's not fair. You have this case out here. It's the original game case, so I know you have one copy left. I'm sorry for yelling, but it really is poor customer service if you don't let me have the game. Lena looks almost saddened at Karen's state, and decides to level with her. Look, Karen. Yes, there is one copy of the game in our inventory, but it is currently unavailable to sell. Not that it matters, but Never here is not the one who checked it out. However, it is a privilege that we get as employees of the store and there is nothing wrong with us exercising that privilege. Now, I'm sorry that we don't have the game available for you today, but the best I can do is ask her to check if another store nearby has it. Karen finally seemed to realize that her tirade wasn't helping, and relented. Lena called a store 10 minutes down the road and had them hold a copy for Karen. The old bag didn't apologize for her behavior, though, and this was not the last incident I had with her. Free from the chains number 1, give me that more expensive item for the same price as the cheaper item. Free from the chains number 2, tell me if that other business is open or not. Free from the chains number 3, oh, your card system is down? Well, that means I can just take it without paying, right? Free from the chains number 4. Maybe if I keep asking the same question 700 times, the answer will change. Thank you. Next. So I got a short story that is actually so sad it's kinda funny from when I worked in retail. I used to work at a drugstore. I won't state which one, but I was working graveyard shift, since the company thinks that being open 24/7 is a great thing. Anyways, one night I was working and a few customers come in, nothing odd, at least at first glance. After a few come in, an officer comes in. He is a regular so he knew us at the store and was pretty chill. The customers are doing their thing when a guy comes inside the building. I noticed him coming in since I was up front. When the other few customers were ready to check out, I checked them out. The officer was at the end of the line. When it was his turn, and I finished scanning everything, the last guy rushed out of the door and the little beeper went off. The officer asked if he stole something. I told him that it's more than likely he did, since it didn't go off when he came in. So the officer went outside. I didn't go outside, since I didn't want to get involved, but I found out what was going on when the officer came back inside to grab his items he was paying for, as well as a fellow officer coming in behind him. He told me that the guy was getting arrested and they wanted to speak with me and my manager. I got my manager up front and we made a report. It turns out this guy stole a pair of sunglasses and 2 boxes of granola bars. In all honesty, if he just had the granola bars, he would have gotten away with it, even with the cop being there. Thank you. Next. Hey guys, first time posting here. I've been in various retail hulls for 9 years now, but currently work as a cashier at a casino. This happened a few weeks ago. Me, bewildered white girl, BWG, customer, confused customer, CC, BWG, concluding the transaction. Thanks so much and good luck to you. CC, mom, one more thing. Why, are you white? BWG, I'm sorry? CC, your skin. Why it look like that? BWG, oh, well, both of my parents are white, so I think that's how that works. CC, huh. BWG. Staring into the yawning abyss. Yeah. CC. And all your brothers and sisters, they are white like you? BWG. I think so, yes. CC. I see. Thank you. Leaves. BWG. The end. Thanks for reading. Y'all.